I want to open up with just a couple of scriptures here today. It's the psalmist is saying this in Psalms 143 and verse number 8. It says, "Cause me to hear your loving kindness in the morning. For in you do I trust. Cause me to know the way in which I should walk. For I lift up my soul, my mind, my will, my emotions, my intellect to you." And he comes back in verse number 11 and says, "Revive me," or "restore me," or like our theme is saying, "O Lord, for your name's sake, for your righteous sake, bring my soul," there it is, my soul, "out of trouble," all types of trouble, physical, emotional, financial, national, global trouble, God. In your mercy, cut off my enemies, God, those ones that are prevailing over my life, those obstacles, God. I ask those things be cut off, and destroy all those who afflict, strong word, afflict, torment, intimidate my mind, my thoughts, my meditations, my soul, for I am your servant. I just want to share a little bit. Dr. Barron talked about in 2008, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer, stage 4, kidney cancer, given a 50% chance to live 1 year, but to the glory of God, we've outlived all the stats, we've outlived every doctor report, and to God be the glory. But I want to share a little bit from this title, that I'm broken on the inside, and I don't know how to fix it. I'm broken on the inside, and I don't know how to fix it. And I'll connect the dots in a few moments what that means. But the reality is oftentimes we are all depicted by being a superman or a super minister or a super missionarian or a super pastor. Just like the natural Superman, if you're not familiar with it, who could just simply outrun a speeding bullet and is faster than a locomotive and can jump higher than anyone else. We sometimes think that we are invincible. And sometimes we don't have an off switch. We're on all the time. And we're going to pick up the phone and we're going to answer the email and we're not going to be off the grid. And we're going to do every funeral and we're going to do every baby dedication and we're going to say yes to every preaching opportunity. And we're people that don't run from trouble. The way we've been hardwired is we run to the trouble. We would almost look at it as a negative for me to run from the trouble based on my personality. And I'm not weak that way. And you could quote scripture and you have self-confidence, but that's sometimes the nature. But even like Superman, there's a kryptonite sometimes. And we've got to watch out for that kryptonite. Because all of us want to go, and want more, and we want to go faster. But sometimes what is the cost of that? And that's what I want to share with you for the next few moments. In recent years, we've heard a lot about soul management or soul care or emotional or mental fatigue. It's been a hot subject for a lot of people. I'm a endurance athlete and I do triathlons and Ironmans now, and I was seeing a therapist because I was experiencing some pain in my body. And she began to share with me that there are natural scars or outward scars that are very visible. But your body has inward scars. And if we don't deal with those inward scars, then it is eventually going to affect your performance. See, I don't naturally like to stretch, like this kind of stretching after a run or before it. I don't like to, I just want to get out there and do it. Well, that was really cool when I was 20 years old or even 15 years old. But at 63 years old, I better do some stretching. Because I'm going to feel it, not always necessarily during the competition, the performance, the workout, while I'm preaching, while I'm ministering. But the after I'm done with it, all of a sudden I feel tightness. I feel cramping. And she began to say, you've neglected yourself for all these years because you could get away with it. You could be on all the time. You could say yes to everything. You could go 1,000 miles an hour. But now it's caught up to you. And now we're going to have to break down all the scar tissue that you cannot see outwardly or visibly, but it's internal and it's just as strong and it's just as powerful. So I take you back now. The date is May 23rd, 2020. I'm celebrating my birthday with my boys and my daughter-in-laws and my grandkids all around me. The reality is that we're enjoying this wonderful meal together, and I begin to cry. Not tears because it's my birthday, but tears of sorrow, and tears I don't understand. Why? And I look at all of them, and I said, I am broken on the inside, and I don't know how to fix myself. And I kept crying, and I'm thinking, these are my grandkids around me. Stop it, Diego. These are your daughter-in-laws. They've never seen you cry like this. Stop it, Diego. Diego, this is your birthday. This is really Dudsville. This is really negative right now. This is really a sad moment. But it was true. It was true. Well, the reality is that what was happening in my body at that time was I had a foggy brain going on at that time. I couldn't hold thoughts very long. And I didn't recognize the sign of it. But I had foggy brain. Next, my sleep was very erratic. I'd wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning looking at the ceiling saying, well, might as well just go ahead and pray and read my Bible and begin to start writing a book or do a leadership message or put a sermon together. And so I'll just take advantage of that time. I had cracked 2 teeth during that time, and the doctor couldn't figure out why. And so he gave me this mouth guard to sleep with at night. And then come to find out, we found out that I was under such stress, I was grinding my teeth at night that I cracked 2 teeth during that period of time. I wasn't operating at a high level of energy or emotion at that particular time. And they're going to just show you a couple pictures here. I don't mean to gross you out. I woke up and this is how I looked one morning. Look at the bags under my eyes. And I think there might be one more other image if there's not. That's all my skin is all rashed and red. I didn't understand what was happening. What is going on? I don't think that I'm living in sin. I don't think that I'm neglecting myself or blatantly abusing myself, but I don't know what's wrong. I'm broken on the inside and I don't know why. Well, let's figure out it's May of 2020, and so yes, COVID has now been unleashed. And I'm managing COVID through my church, but I probably took on too much by helping other churches and flew up and down California to share about how we were processing COVID. Okay, could be good, could be bad. Let's not make a big deal out of it, but that's what happened. That was it. Next, I have 5 people very close to me die. 2 of them were former staff pastors, and one of my best friends in ministry all died within 6 months. Okay, that's kind of heavy. But the one that triggered it, and I almost like if you got a piece of board and snapped it, I could almost feel it on the inside. It's hard for me to describe it or hear in my soul. I could feel it. My son had a botched vasectomy. He had gone through 5 surgeries at the time. He's had a 6th one now. It had been a 5-year process of walking him through that. I don't know if you've ever been employed where you see one of your children suffering. And that suffering is intense suffering. It got so bad that this would go on, day in, day out, week in and week out, month, year. And he'd call me on the phone and I'd see caller ID, I'd see his name. And I got to the place where I did not want to answer my own son's phone call because I knew where it would go. He'd be telling me the latest pain in his life and how he doesn't want to live anymore, and how he's questioning his faith, and how he doesn't know how to deal with it, and he's probably going to divorce his wife, and I just couldn't answer the phone no more. That's where I was. But this phone call that I had was the one that did it, and he said, Dad, I figured out how to kill myself, so I'm just going to ask you, would you take care of my 3 children after I commit suicide? And I broke. That's May 23rd of what happened. But I just want to talk to you a little bit about the journey and what I learned on that journey as God would begin to restore my life from something that I had never experienced before. I thought to myself, was I experiencing an attack of the enemy? Is that how I'm going to define it? Was there some kind of imbalance in my lifestyle? Is that how I would explain it? Did I really neglect my soul? Was there some form of neglect that was going on in my life? Was I experiencing something that they call a nervous breakdown or even a burnout? Was this some type of what they call stress disorder? I thought those only happened to people in the military or in high trauma jobs. I didn't know what to do. And oftentimes when we hear terms like that, or we're feeling terms like that, there's often a negative stigma that's attached to it. There's a lot of shame that goes with it, or embarrassment. Sometimes it's an arrogance that says I don't have it, or an ignorance that wants to deny it. Or sometimes it's, no, that's not me. That'll never happen to me. That happens from those other people that I hear about that don't have the theology that I have, or don't have the belief systems that I have, or don't have the relationship with God, that are not hardwired as strong as I am. I thought to myself, it could never happen really to me. Or maybe it did happen, it's already happened, and I'm just simply not aware of it. Here's what I understood through that all of us have an emotional makeup. If I was to put a piece of pie, a dessert, like a circle, and cut it up, we all have an emotional makeup. And that's our personality, that might be our DNA, that might be how we react to things, how we interpret things. That's just who we are. It's who we are. So in other words, what affects you at a greater degree may not affect me as much, and it may be a minor degree. What affects me as a greater degree may only affect you as a minor degree. And I'm not sure that we can totally figure that out. It's going to take someone much smarter than me to talk about that. But I do think we need to acknowledge it. I think we do need to examine it. I think we do need to be protective of it, to say that this is as much as I can handle, and I can't handle no more. Or this is the time I come off the clock, I'm off the grid, and I'm not going to answer no more emails, so that I can operate at a full tank rather than a half of a tank. Maybe we should stop right there and ask ourselves, can I even define what a full tank is in my life? Pastor Bayless talked about the gas nozzle. So I know what a full tank is in my automobile look like. That's $150 in my Ford 150 truck. That's what full looks like. But in my spiritual life, in my soulish life, in my relationship life, do I know what full looks like? Or have I just been operating at half for a long time, or 1/4 of a tank? How many of you remember when you didn't have no money and all you could do is pull out $1, $2 to go to a gas station to get you from point A to point B? Then you got a little bit of money and you say, fill it up. I hope I haven't lost you. I'm just asking the question. Can you discern what a full tank looks like in your life? Or are you just comfortable putting in the few dollars to get you through the week or whatever it might be? So with that emotional pie, I want to talk a little bit about what that might look like. How do you process losses in your life? How much of that in that pie is your energy? In that pie is your emotions? How much that is extrapolated? How much is that used when you go through losses in budgets, losses in buildings, losses in property, losses in relationships, losses in deaths? How do you process that? So there's losses. Then the next one is deaths, expected and unexpected. And us having to do the funerals or whatever we have to do there. There is a depletion that takes place in relationship to that. Crises. In our emotional pie, there's losses, there's deaths, there's crises. That deals with lawsuits, that deals with me having to take the hit for my staff when I had nothing to do with the wrongness, but now my ministry is now being criticized. Or now the emotions of my staff and what they've done wrong is now put on me. There are all those crises that can often affect us. Then there's dealing with the betrayals in our lives, the abandonment, the rejection, the hurt, the criticism, and the judgments that take place. Just simply the failures that are in our lives. Simply the failures. My friend pastored this church, and him and Deborah are a byproduct of the Arrowhead environment, which are the mountains that exist just simply north of us. And I wanted to buy this 10-acre retreat center. My friend told me not to buy it, but I bought it. Bless God, I bought it. And this is the first time I've ever said, don't share this with my church or anybody else, okay? No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, so we just wanted to have youth camps there, children's camps there, staff camps there. We wanted to make it a revenue stream that people could rent it out and so on and so forth. We put $2.5 million into it, retrofitted it to become like about a 4-star retreat. It was gorgeous and it was beautiful. But for a few years ago, we had some record-breaking snowfall in our mountains. And some ridiculous amount, like 10 to 12 feet, fell in a few days. And it collapsed our roofs. So to make a long story short, we don't own the retreat center anymore. We sold it. But back here in the back of my head, it's saying, failure, you missed God. What happened to that dream? What happened to that promise? It could have been. It should have had. I can explain some things, but there may be some things that I can't explain. That is an emotional weight. And I'm not trying to put anything on any of us. And I'm not trying to psychoanalyze any one of us. But the reality is that every time someone exits our life, there is a depletion that takes place. We only think of grieving over a casket. But there's all levels of grieving that I think are healthy grievings. That I just need to take a pause right now. God, I just want to thank you for that person that was in my church for 3 years and how they volunteered, God. And now they're leaving, or now they're saying bad things. Or I want to just thank you for that staff member I had for 2 years, but now they don't want to be here anymore. They want to build the kingdom, or they just want to go down the street next door to start a church. I just want to grieve it for a moment, celebrate it, lift it off, give it to you, God, before I move on to the next project. But we don't do that. We just move. And I don't know if that's always healthy. That you should just have a time to just decompress. I'm not saying a week. I'm not saying a day. It could be 10 seconds. So that you're not carrying it in any form or any fashion. So there's often new visions. That's an emotional makeup. We have new projects we got to deal with, new ideas, new plans. Our own personal families is an emotional pie that can affect us, and I think it carries a strong one for all of us. Some of these are heavy, but that one, when a marriage isn't right, when my children, grandchildren, or any form of waywardness is going on. And then there's just simply the preaching load that takes place of how many times we've got to come up with messages and hear from God and preach those messages. And then we just deal with the whatever's going on in our nation, whatever's going on in our providences, whatever's going on in our states that we live in, and all the politics that exist, or the wars that exist, or the lack of freedom in the gospel, all of that creates a weight. So I learned just simply how to begin to read the signs, like a dashboard. When I'm driving, there's lights that go on and off, and they say something, and I better pay attention to it, because eventually it'll cause a problem. And so I better learn the dashboard maybe. And so I began to look at my dashboard, and I began to think about my sleeping habits. My dashboard, was I getting the proper amount of sleep? I was beginning to look at my eating diet. What types of foods was either maybe going to help me to get better, or was triggering the inflammation that I was dealing with because of the stress in my life. I began to look at how irritable I used to be, or got at that particular point. How just like traffic would bother me, or incompetency of people would bother me. Things that maybe weren't at the level, all of a sudden during this season began to rise. My irritability was much more higher during that time, and that was just simply a gauge to look at. Isolation and distancing began to take place. I just didn't want to be around a lot of people right now. And these were just the dashboard of unhealthiness taking place, is the isolation that took place. It was starting to be a little bit controlling and demanding. I wasn't asking staff, I was telling staff. I wasn't inviting a collective conversation, I was just directing everything. That began to be a little bit of a sign that was going on. Little ambition and little motivation, we're just simply going to maintain, began to be a telling sign at that particular time. Not a lot of joy, not a lot of laughter. If it was just simply done by faith, maybe a little pretentious, but I didn't really have a lot to laugh about during that particular time, or smile about during that particular time. I just simply felt like a lot of things in my life were just fatal. They were just absolutely fatal. And there was a heaviness that was going on. So here are some things as I wind this message down a little bit. If you're not sure you're having any of these signs, why don't you ask your spouse or your wife? They're probably going to tell you the gospel truth right away. Ask yourself, am I tired or am I weary? There's a difference. It's okay to be tired. It's not okay to be weary. Tiredness is just healthy. I'm working, I'm putting forth energy, but I'm able to recover, and I'm able to replenish, and I'm able to be strong the next day and rebound and be resilient. But when I'm weary, I'm not resilient, and I'm not rebounding like I should. And it just seems to be constant going on in my life. My question to you is, when are you off the grid? You have to decide that. I can't tell you. It's not my job. You have to decide, when am I off the grid? When am I not reachable or available or accessible? Whatever that is, because everybody has an emergency. I need a meeting. I need a response. You have to decide what that looks like. Do I really know how to rest well? What does rest look like for me? It's learning to say no to some great opportunities, but right now my focus needs to be somewhere else. And just because I could do something, does that mean that I should? Paul says all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. So just because I can, does that mean I should? Are things to consider. I considered a Sabbath, and I did go on a Sabbath for the next 3 months during that time. And I asked elders, I asked boards, I asked mentors to help me to navigate them through those things. I just want to end with just a nutshell now. I'm going to tell you what this summer looked like, the summer of 2020, and how God used it amazing. Number one was I put on worship music all night because I had a hard time sleeping. So I just went to Pandora, the app Pandora. I Googled in Darlene Sheck worship songs, and I played them every night, the whole night, that whole month. The whole 3 months. She put me to sleep. She knocked me out. The worship got in my spirit. Hope was beginning to be revived in me. So I tell myself, you can't get up. I'd still get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, no, you're going to stay here and you're going to listen to songs. You can't get up out of bed. Sometimes it take me 5 songs, so whatever that is, 15 minutes or something like that, or longer, but I stay in it. God led me to Psalms 23. I dissected every word in Psalms 23. What it means to restore my soul. But the one in verse 5 was, He anoints my head with oil. That's what I so desperately need. And my cup needs to overflow, God. And He began to do that. Every morning I call my mom, who's my greatest cheerleader, and just let her speak over me and speak to me. Who I could be vulnerable to. Mom, I'm hurting. I'm crying all the time. I'm sorrowful all the time. I'm sad all the time. Somebody I could be transparent with. Help me. I spent that summer just walking the beach. That's all I did was walk along the beach. Got outside, got some vitamin D. Just watched the beach. But amazingly, as I close, I got introduced a few years later to my friend Suzetta on the front row. And I called her. She's an intercessor, and I asked her to pray over this. And she called me and she said, Diego, I sense witchcraft. I said, what? She said, I sense witchcraft. Now, I'm just like you. I'm not hyper-spiritual. I'm not spooky. Witchcraft. Am I operating in witchcraft? No. Around you. And I'm thinking, I went through my staff and my mind and everything like that. Love you, Suzetta. You've been right on. You're missing it, girl. I didn't tell her that, but that's what I'm thinking. You don't know what the heck you're talking about. Witchcraft. So then, but the seed is in my head, and so between the next phone call, I'm thinking, and then I have this dream that goes back, that about 2 to 3 times a year, I have the same recurring dream with this individual in it, and it's never a happy dream. It's always sad, it's depressive. The person was very controlling in my life, so they're rebuking me and they're chastening me, and I wake up sorrowful. So the next time I talk to her, I tell her that, and she said, that's it. We're going to break that spirit. What am I trying to tell you? I don't understand everything, but I want to be open to get well any way that God wants to get me well. And I don't know how much of that played an effect or not. But I'm just grateful. I am extremely grateful that summer God restored my soul, anointed my head with oil, and today my cup is overflowing. God, I just thank you for soul restoration for anybody and everybody today, God, that is just weary in their mind, oh God, with heaviness, oh God. I pray things are broken off of them, God, and I thank you for the beauty for ashes, and I thank you that the mourning will be over, for joy will come. In Jesus' name, amen.